It's one thing to just have self-awareness. There are people who are in prison who are self-aware. And if you let them out of prison, some of them might want to go and do that same thing that they're very self-aware. Self-awareness only goes as far as you are willing to do something different. If you are not willing to do something different with the information that you have, okay, great. You're self-aware, but are you self-intelligent? Are you self-intelligent enough to say, you know what, this information that I've now received, it is heading me down this direction. I can intellectualize it, make it more academic. I can philosophize it. I can do all these things with it, but it's not changing the behavior and it's not changing the trajectory of where I'm trying to go. But with self-intelligence, I'm saying, okay, I see where this has been leading me and I see that it's leading me in a place that's no longer serving me. So what am I willing to do different to get me down this other path? And that's what you did.
Welcome to the Jasmine Star Show. Today is a very special episode because we are going to spill the tea. A few months ago, I had my business coach, Susan, on the podcast. And unexpectedly, that podcast and those downloads went crazy. And I tried to figure out, what is it? We had a good conversation, but what I heard a lot from people was they just liked to know the behind the scenes of business building. And so it is with great honor and great privilege that I get to introduce to you somebody who's been along my side through one of the biggest transitions in my business. Dr. Natasha, thank you for being on the Jasmine Star Show.
Jasmine, I am so excited to be here today.
And I told you I'm an open book.
You are.
I'm an open book.
Yeah.
And okay, so normally we start the show and I say, we're on we're on an elevator, we're going 4 flights down, tell me what it is you do. But instead, I don't want to start there because I immediately want to start with the value to you as an entrepreneur. I want you to come alongside me and number one, don't repeat the same mistakes I did. Number 2, don't stay stuck for as long as I have stayed stuck. And number 3, get to know Dr. Natasha. So Dr. Natasha, let me back up a little bit. Let me introduce people. So the year is 2024 and I joined an executive coaching program through VaynerMedia, and this program is called Vive. Now I go in and I have these expectations. We're going to be doing business and marketing, and all of those things were true. But here's one thing I didn't know and or expect is that they had come in and they were talking about marketing and leadership and a few other things. And so we come in and I get an email and they said, as part of the program, you get to have a conversation with Dr. Natasha. And I'm going to get to that in a second. And they introduce who Dr. Natasha is in the Vayner organization. And first things first, I have to take what they had said was a print assessment. And I was like, wait. I got to do some work before I can get on a call and okay. And they're like, schedule it out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like another thing for me to do in my already busy schedule. So I take some time, I take this test and I get the results. And then I hop online and I meet this woman who blew my dang mind. Now, when we first meet, do you know anything about me? Do you know what this program is new? It's new to me. I'm the first cohort, and you are new to the program.
Right.
So you know now my story getting to that point. Where do our stories first intersect?
Well, I would like to back up if we're talking about the tea. You sent me a long email and said, not a long email, but you said, Dr. Natasha, I just want to let you know this thing read me like a book.
I did say that. The print assessment, it read me like a book.
It read you like a book.
Yes.
And I was very excited about that because oftentimes, and it could be that assessment or any assessment. Sometimes leaders, I'm not sure that that's really me. But for you to before we even had a conversation, that resonated with you. Yes. I was very excited about our engagement.
Well, she was very excited. I wasn't so excited because it said some stuff that I was like, I'm so embarrassed that this test saw me. Right. Like these are things that I keep behind the scenes, things that I'm maybe not all that proud of as a leader. But part of me stepping into this next version of who I am, I actually have to learn how to lead.
Yeah.
And as the businesses grow and as the businesses diversify, I have to learn how to lead. I can't just say, well, it will come to me, because if it would have had already. Right. And it had not. So I get this test. And so then we meet and what is your role in the program at the time?
Yes. So at the time, my role was executive coach. And so the purpose and goal of that is to get with you to say, okay, what are your goals? What are the things that you're trying to accomplish? A lot of times I can go in with all the hard things and here's what the assessment says and here's what you need to work on. But that doesn't work, especially for high performing, high achieving people like yourself. We need to first go in with, okay, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? And then let's look at this assessment, because this is going to be a tool that we use to get you to that point. And sometimes it takes looking at the things that we might not want to look at to get us there. But that's where we have the biggest breakthroughs.
And then speaking of breakthroughs, unbeknownst to me, this is a 4-month program.
4-month program.
And it was a surprise and delight that I had the opportunity to continuously meet with you through the 4 months. And it's these 4 months in 2024 where I felt like massive changing and me stepping into this new version, and then me doubting what that new version is. And then me wanting to say, well, wait a minute, who am I to do this? Or maybe I should step back, or maybe I should be moving slower. And every time we met, you were like, okay, let's bring us back. And I'm going to talk about a few of those examples, anything that comes to mind. But let's go back to this idea of a print assessment. Now, this is an assessment that assesses you and your leadership style and things that you lean into, things that maybe you repel from. Now, I think it was like on page 6 or 7, there's a list of what they call triggers.
My favorite part.
Okay. And so there's these things that like you, and everybody has their own set of triggers, and it's a myriad of as to why these triggers are yours, but it's this list of triggers. And so we're on this call, and I'm trying to be professional with Dr. Natasha, first time we meet. And she says, okay, Jasmine, when you look at any of the triggers, do like maybe 2 or 3 resonate with you? And I said, all of them. All of them. And you said, all of them? And I said, oh, all of them.
You were the first person that I've had to say with a straight face, all of these are my triggers.
And then you're like, okay, but is there some that's to go? I was like, no, they're all 12 out of 10.
Because the goal is we need to identify just the top 3.
Right.
Because as we look at the next 4 months, these are going to be the ones that will come up. These are going to be the ones that we want to strategize for to make sure that we're in best self.
Yes.
But yeah, you said all of them. So how are we going to, okay, well, we got a lot of work to do.
Okay. And so some of the triggers, so people are like, well, what are some of these triggers? Some of these triggers were when people talk slow.
That was that one. When you said that one, there was a lot of energy behind. When they talk slow.
When people talk slow, when people give you a lot of details. Now, there are some leaders, and this is the beautiful thing about understanding your leadership style, is that there's a lot of leaders who like a lot of information, or tell me how you got to this point. But when you give me too much information, I immediately go blank, and I'm like, I don't even know, I don't know which way is up. And so a trigger for me is you come to me and you're saying, here's all the information, here's 18 options. I will be like, are you kidding me right now?
And I think that's a really good point, because when you are fully aware that this is one of my triggers, and this is going to be one of those things that it's not about setting you off or making you angry. What it is, it's going to be something that pulls you out of best self. The person that you're trying to show up as and have the impact that you want to have, if we allow this trigger to interrupt that, then we're not going to have the impact that we actually want to have. Our intention is to help the team move forward, grow our business, have this partnership. But if we allow that trigger to kind of step into your point, and maybe I'll learn how to get all the details. If somebody wants to spend 30 minutes, that's not going to work for you. No. So how can we make it work? That's where the strategy comes in with the rest of the coaching program. So
was there any instances when we were working together, maybe that something like comes to mind, and saw like the before and after version? I would say... Can we pause? Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I don't know if you want the one part that we kept going back to with you and your mom, like not realizing how much that was impacting. Yeah, like I'm an open book. Because we talked about I'm an open book. What do you call it? We talked about you just feeling the need, like you were making these agreements. Well, if I do all these things, then this thing won't happen. I mean, I said I wanted to be real. Okay. I said I wanted to be real. How did that end up playing out with? Like, I feel like my mother and I, girl, why am I gonna start crying? Just don't do that. I know. Good. I feel like we've come a really long way, a really long way. So I didn't know that me being a part of an executive group coaching program was going to do a lot. And here's the thing. A lot of times I didn't even know that. Okay. And so when we talk about, we're going to keep on, we're going to keep on rolling. That's not getting edited out. We're just rolling with it, because I don't want the show to be like the perfectly perfect version. Right. Thank you for respecting my privacy, but I am going to be an open book. Okay. And so I will absolutely talk about it, because if anybody can really deeply understand those deeply seated things that come up, I want to talk about it. And so, I entered into an executive coaching program, and I didn't know that my executive tendencies were from familial training, obligation, connection. Right. And so let's go back. We're going to keep the whole thing as it is, So we'll pick up. Okay. So one of the things that we talked about early on that I think came out
maybe session 2, session 3, because you are such an open book. A lot of times in executive coaching engagements, it takes us,
Yes.
quite a few sessions, maybe a month, to get to the work, to uncovering some of the things so that we can get to what it is we need to get to for the breakthroughs. But for you, the one thing that I saw that was the true like light bulb moment on my end, from my perspective, was when we started to talk about your mom. I can't remember exactly if we were talking about a trigger, if there was a specific situation, but there was something that we kept coming back to, as you as a leader and leading this team, you're trying to grow this organization. I think you had figured out maybe I'm going to do, potentially a holding company or something like that. But there was still a little kink there. And what we uncovered is how you would make these agreements as a young child or as a young teenager in your younger years. You would make these agreements, well, if I do this thing, then this won't happen with my mom. You made these if-then statements that stayed with you into how you are currently running your company today. But
okay, let's tear it apart a little bit, because yes, I was making these if-then agreements, and when I hear you talk about it, it sounds so stupid. Like I'm literally making agreements with nothing. Like if I do this, like if I don't let any balls drop, if I say yes to everything, if I show up for my family, if I give my sisters, if I step in for my brother when he needs it the most, then this will keep off the thing that I am so deeply worried about. My mother was diagnosed with cancer when I was 18, 19. And I think that there has been a series of if-then. It's like, if we do this, then we won't lose our house.
Right.
And if we do this. And so growing up, I had self-conditioned based on nothing, Dr. Natasha, that if I could just control everything. And so when my mom had her 9-year battle with cancer, I kept on saying, well, if I leave school and go and cook dinner, and if I can get straight A's, and if I can do this, then God will see what's happening, and I can bargain her life.
Right.
I can bargain her life. Okay, so here I am decades later as a grown woman, and I am bargaining with, if I can do everything all the ways perfectly and never let a single thing down, then this holding company that I'm going to dare to dream to believe will come to fruition. And you're sitting here and you're trying to follow this jacked up rationale. I made up the world as I see it, and trying to understand who are you as a leader, and then trying to understand who am I as a person.
Right.
And you had said it was, what are those things when you're driving and there's like a pothole? You had said, Jasmine.
So I make a very specific distinction between there's executive coaching and then there's therapy, right?
Yes.
And so in my coaching, because I do not do therapy, the goal is not to let's uncover all the things, from a child. We don't even go there. That's not intentional. But we have to acknowledge that there are some things from our family of origin or from our early origin that are impacting us today.
Ooh.
So when we open the door and you want it to go there, that is a great opportunity, because we need to connect the dots from where you were till now.
Yes.
And one of the things that I was sharing with you is that a lot of times we think about trauma as something that's gory and horrible.
Right.
But trauma can be something as simple as those if-thens that you are making. For instance, I described it to you as trauma is, your brain has this map inside of it. Okay. I'm from the South. And so we use markers, landmarks, to describe where we're going. We don't use the miles and all that. We say by that tree, by that old truck. Okay. And so I was explaining to you, our brain has this, beautiful map that's inside of it. It has a beautiful road, and we're going through life and we say, okay, oh yeah, there's that tree. There's grandma's house. There's that lake I remember. And then something happens. We see a pothole, okay? The pothole happens. That's our trauma. That's that my mom's been diagnosed with cancer and I have to do something in order to bargain her life, if I want her to stay here. So then we create that pothole, but then what happens, because that scared us, that jarred our nervous system, we have to cover that pothole up with something. So we cover it up with salt and bagels and all the soft stuff, right? To just get us through. And that's what we need for that moment. We just need to get through this, especially when you're in those formative years. So then we go on throughout life, okay? And our brain is like, okay, yeah, there's that tree again. There's grandma's house. There's that lake. Oh, wait a minute. This reminds me there's a pothole coming up. That pothole has not been dealt with. We start to freak out. You have anxiety, you have depression, you have stress, you have, compulsory attitudes. You have all these things that start to happen because your brain knows it's approaching the pothole, but you feel externally, I've covered up that pothole. But then your brain freaks out. We get right back in that pothole. We dig it out again. we have another, episode, another event where we're making another if then, and then we just cover it right back up and we keep going until we cover up the pothole. We will continue to come to that same behavior. We will continue to act that way, just more sophisticated.
So there is a difference between repairing the pothole and covering the pothole.
Exactly.
And what you had pointed out was there was a distance between one session and the next. And you had explained to me, Jasmine, there is a pothole. And what you have been doing is you have been covering the pothole, but you have not repaired the pothole. And I'm sitting there looking at you as like, okay. Okay. It wasn't this light bulb moment of like, let me see what it is. And what I had said was, Dr. Natasha, I think that what happens is I make these if-then conciliatory bargains, and the if-then is the pothole. And I thought I had this coming too. And then I was going to meet with you a few weeks later as part of the program. And in between that 3 weeks, I had deeply realized that it wasn't my mother that was the pothole. It was my lack of faith and trust. That was it. That my mother became like this idealized or this embodied personification of the pothole. And I kept on saying, well, it was my mom and I'm so fractured and I always feel like life is so precious and I have to do everything and I can't have any regrets. And that's not it, Dr. Natasha.
Right.
I didn't trust. I did it. And then, so what happened now if we're going back to executive coaching, when I'm talking about this vacillation of the holding company, the vacillation of how much do we expand the team? How much do we not expand the team? What kind of strategic bets do we take? And you would see this and you had said you didn't address the pothole. And here I am saying, I'm making these if-then bargains, Dr. Natasha, that if I do this, then I earn the right to expand in this way. And it was, I actually don't deeply trust that God has got this.
Exactly. When you are willing to do the work, let me back up. It's one thing to just have self-awareness. I think I've said quite a few times, there are people who are in prison who are self-aware, okay? And if you let them out of prison, some of them might want to go and do that same thing that they're very self-aware. Self-awareness only goes as far as you are willing to do something different.
Ooh.
If you are not willing to do something different with the information that you have, okay, great. You're self-aware, but are you self-intelligent? Are you self-intelligent enough to say, you know what, this information that I've now received, it is heading me down this direction. I can intellectualize it because that's what we as smart people do. I can make it more academic. I can philosophize it. I can do all these things with it, but it's not changing the behavior and it's not changing the trajectory of where I'm trying to go. But with self-intelligence, I'm saying, okay, I see where this has been leading me, and I see that it's leading me in a place that's no longer serving me. So what am I willing to do different to get me down this other path? And that's what you did. I will never forget when you sent me that long email. I had to go shout. I had to go pray. I had to go run around. Because my job is not to make you see it. My job is not to give you all the answers. And I think sometimes people might come into coaching engagements, whether it was with a business coach, a life coach, and they think, well, just do a dance and rub the genie and make me happy. That's not what it is. It's just to be a space to provide it for you, created for you to explore. Okay, here's where I want to go. Here's where I am. Now, ask me the questions, create for me the space in order to know and believe and agree that these are the things that I need to do going forward. And so that's when you sent that another long email, because
I know, girl, I'm right. It's how I process. You just on the other side of it. You should be blessed. Very few people get those emails.
I was very blessed. But when I received it, like, that's the light bulb moment. That was the work that needed to be done. And then you went into your call with Gary, and we had our call before, and then it was like, okay, I'm trying to think of the question because I've met Gary before, and I've asked him all the things, and what could I ask? And it was
okay. So we need to pause for people who are not totally in the journey. As part of the Vive program was having a call with Gary Vaynerchuk, and I had explained to Dr. Natasha the deep amount of respect and like just sheer unadulterated husband-approved love that I have for the role that he's played in my life and business. And I said, I've spoken to Gary before, and I want to make sure that this question is the best question. And had we not really addressed what this was about, that the question I would have asked would have been in protection of the pothole.
There you go.
And so we had to actually address the pothole. We actually had to say, oh, this is actually like do you believe in the deepest part of you that the thing you want to build is going to happen? Right. And I don't know if I had the courage to just come out and say, like, I believe, because I didn't want to be let down. I didn't want to be disappointed. And so now I feel so free to say, I know. Yeah. Now, here's the tough part. I don't know, Dr. Natasha, if it's going to happen now or next year or when I'm 65.
Right.
And do I accept the terms of it being a very long journey to get to where I want to go? That's a separate podcast. We still got to do some work there. But had I not be willing to say, here I am, and that's where I want to go, and then sit through the work that we had done together, I don't think I would have leveraged that opportunity. There's not a single thing I would have done different about that Gary Vaynerchuk call. We also vlogged about it. We're going to link it in the show notes because it's like we shared the whole thing.
It was really good.
We shared that. Now, somebody's listening, and I wanted to go in a slightly different direction, but somebody's listening right now, and I want to make it about them because it's enough to be like, cool, good for Jasmine, but I'm listening and Dr. Natasha is not sitting next to me. Right. So for somebody, I'm bringing everybody in, people who are watching and listening. How do you introduce yourself to the table? And then how do we start giving people the tools to like say, I'm going to do this on my own or start the journey on my own?
Yes. So I help 7 to 8 figure business owners do the unseen work to have the visible impact. And what I mean by that is a lot of what we're talking about today, like doing the things that we don't even realize are challenges for us. We don't even realize are roadblocks for us. Doing that introspective work, taking a break. Let's go to a secluded place to really look at, okay, what are the things that are driving your behaviors? And what are the needs that you are trying to get met, that you've been trying to get met for a long time, but you are still walking away. I'm unfulfilled. I'm still, I have no direction, or maybe I'm still stressed out, or maybe I still I'm left wanting and I don't know what that piece is. So we do a lot of that work. Then we get to that visible impact, which is what you're now talking about, showing up to your team differently, showing up for your business differently, showing up even in your own personal life, your family differently. So that's the work that I do. And I do this by the first thing, whether it's the two of us working together or doing this on your own, it's really important to get an understanding of what are your needs, which is what we would often call unconscious motivators. Though think about, when you were a child, right? Like, were you the one that everyone was leaning and depending on to fix problems? Then all of a sudden you just took on the identity of, well, I'm a fixer. I'm going to fix every single problem. And sometimes you might even be finding yourself, am I even fixing the right problem? Right?
She's literally using me as an example. Like, who are we kidding? Like, she's just, and I'm okay. Use me as an example, because this is what she just said was, hypothetically, you might have been taken on the role of the fixer. I'm the eldest daughter of 5, first generation Latina family, and highly responsible. My mother would introduce me as Jasmine's the responsible one. So I'd taken on that identity, and I had never asked, what are my needs? And so because I didn't pause and ask that question, what I went into the business is I'm the fixer.
Yes.
I get this dopamine hit of what do you need fixed? What do you need fixed? And all of a sudden I'm drained at the end of the day. I'm not actually moving the business forward because I'm just trying to fix.
I love, if we could understand more, you just shared, you get that dopamine fix when you do that thing. It's because the titles and the names and the things that were tied to you in your formative years, again, you've taken those on as a part of your identity, and it gives you this high almost, because then you learn that's how I'm going to get my need met. If you can see me as a fixer, if you can see that this is how I provide value to you, why on earth, as a human being who enjoys that feeling, why would we not continue to pursue that until we wake up one day and we realize, wait a minute, this is not serving me. I know this is where I want to go. I know this is where I want to be. Wait a minute, this is not getting me there. So once you do that work, to your point of understanding, how have I always got my needs met? And are they serving me to get me to where I'm trying to go? Sometimes, it might come natural to you that you might want to start with, well, where do I want to go first, right? I think that that's good. You could do that. But sometimes it's doing that work first so you can even start to dream about where you could potentially go. For example, Seth Godin, I recently heard him ask 2 powerful questions. The one question was, if you could do something, for the next 6 months and not be paid for it, what would that thing be? You wouldn't be paid for it, no accolades, no affirmations, no, you might not even get that dopamine hit. What would you continue to do? And then the second question he asked was, it's an opposite of what we all know as, if you could do anything and succeed, what would you do? He flipped it. He said, if the next thing you did, or if you could do anything, knowing that it was going to fail,
Ooh,
but
stop,
you'd
Seth.
still do it.
Stop, Seth. This hurts.
You'd still do it. What would that thing be? That's not the dreaming. That's not the North Star exercise. That's really doing some of that introspective work. Like you have to sit in what has got me to where I am right now. So that now it opens up the possibilities. Once I understand, am I a fixer? Was I the person to just be, to carry everyone's emotions? So now I'm the people pleaser, making sure that everyone's okay. Are you okay, Jasmine? Is everyone else okay?
No, but to flip it as a leader, I've seen other leaders who take the opposite, where if the role that they played in their family or how they were raised was the person who was always taken care of and didn't have to step into responsibility, is that as they lead, they say the team's going to take care of it. But then it lacks like the vision and that true leadership of like, you're at the top. Right. You can't abdicate this.
There's no balance.
Right.
You have to have balance. And that's why it's important to start with that introspective work. Like how am I getting my needs met? Are they serving me? And if they are not, if you're willing to do that work, because I've met leaders who are not willing to do the work. They are not willing to sit and say that, well, I've always done it this way. And I do think that there could be another way. Some of them flat out will say, yeah, I don't think I have any problems. I think that I'm good. I think that, we shouldn't be talking about those things. I'm just trying to pursue this next thing, not realizing once I do a 180 assessment and talk to their direct reports, talk to their colleagues, talk to, even potential partners. Yes. And it's always a theme, right? It's always a theme that's running through that, maybe they could be a bit kinder, but if that person feels that, well, kindness won't get me to where I'm going, then you're absolutely right. It won't get you to where you've decided that you want to go. So doing the introspective work, and once you do the introspective work, you find out how you have been getting those needs met. You then can now start to envision, actually, what opportunities open up for me if I were just to play in this space? So like you said, Jasmine, I think how you described it, and I know we're talking to the audience, but you said, this vision of an octopus, right? When you were willing to do the work, you started getting these ideas and these thoughts, like creatively, these things started opening up. You're like, this is a holding company. This is like, what is this thing? And then that allowed you to have a very fruitful conversation with Gary. And then now, as you just shared, I don't know if it's going to be 65. I don't know if it's going to be 2 years or even 6 months from now. But because you have had the epiphany, because you have had the breakthrough, you can now start to envision. And now all of your decisions are going to be towards this thing that we don't even know yet, but it's now starting to order your steps. And that's the important piece.
So can I repeat back what I heard?
Please.
So somebody at home can start doing this work.
Yes.
And then obviously you're going to follow Dr. Natasha. You are going to go to drnatashaj.com. We're going to get to all of that. But I don't want this show to be like, well, that's for some people. Right. This show is for everybody who's willing to do the work. And I want to share what I had invested a lot of money in that otherwise some people might not have right now. Right. But some of the questions that we might be able to ask is, well, identify where you are. And then identify, if you can, where do you want to go? And then you want to ask yourself, are my needs being met? Yes. And then, but a lot of times, would you say that we have to ask, well, what do I need right now?
Yeah. So one thing that you can do is you have trusted colleagues, right? You have family members that, if they say so, they can say something to you directly without it causing a fight at the family reunion. You have really good friends that will just tell you like it is. You have, past mentors. You have a network of people that you can reach out to and let them know like, hey, I'm doing a little bit of internal work. And what are some of the things that you noticed about me? Things that you absolutely love, one or two, you don't want to inundate them. One or two things that you absolutely love, but one or two things, if I were really to get over this hump, I would just explode. What would you say those things are? And you phrase that up however you like to, but you can even start there just to start getting your mind going. Now, I guarantee that if you really sat with it, and look back over the past few decades of your life, like the things that you constantly heard from different people, and maybe we've guarded ourselves against it, right? So Jasmine, like for you, I'm not sure, what your team would say, but like you don't like many details, right? So when someone is bringing you a lot of details, I imagine that some of your team or maybe partners you worked with before, you're like, yeah, like when I was just trying to explain to Jasmine, like, here are the logistics and here's what we have to, she just seems, she kind of just brushes it off. I'm sure Jasmine, I felt you just brushed me off and we really didn't have that conversation. So it may even be things, if you really sat with it, that you've noticed there are different themes that have happened throughout your life and they've shown up in your teenage years and your 20s and your 30s and your 40s and so on and so forth, that might even be a starting point as well. But I would say colleagues, tap into your network, your team, your colleagues, mentors, whoever throughout your life, family, friends. But then also just be willing and open to say, if I could work on one thing today, and that would really change the direction of my business, of my relationships, what would that one thing be, if I was being honest?
So this came up because I invested for you to work with my mastermind.
Yes.
So I wanted these women in my mastermind. It was a surprise and delight that it was a surprise and delight with me. And I'm sure many of them felt the same way. Like, Jasmine, you're giving us something more to do right now. We're so busy. So the mastermind is for seven-figure female founders. These are women who are highly successful. These are women from the outside who have it all together. And so I asked them to take the print assessment like I did and then have a meeting with you. And so I know that you would never share anybody else's.
Right.
But what I want to do is I want to pull out patterns that you saw with them and how you might say, okay, I'm going to guess that people are watching might be going through this, or this.
Yes.
And then what were some of the things that we might be able to take action on?
Yes. So one of the things that I noticed about your group is that out of all of these amazing women, when I would meet with them and I'm like, you know what, let me do just a full picture of them. I noticed that this group leaned heavily strong and self-reliant.
Strong and self-reliant.
The majority of this group, I would say 90% were strong and self-reliant. That was their number one need that needed to get met.
Like, if I don't feel strong and if I don't feel self-reliant, I am not in a good place.
Yes. And the one piece that I want to call out, remember we talked about how these are needs that you need to get met internally. What we have realized and what I'm asking the audience to do, I'm asking you to do the work that is going to come externally so you can get to the internal. But when we meet, it is, okay, you've been getting this need met externally, but now it's time to get this need met internally. So your group, 90% strong and self-reliant, that's how they got to where they are.
That's
strong
right.
and self-reliant.
That's right.
Grit, grind, doing what needed to be done, not waiting for someone to give them permission,
That's right.
not waiting for someone to pull up a chair. So these things, I don't want to say that these things are not serving. Everything that we have gone through, everything that you have gone through up until this point, you've needed to go through to get you here. You wouldn't have it any other way. It got you to where you are right now. But what we're saying is, and what we talk through is, and with these amazing women, is that, okay, you did it. And as cliche as it may sound, this is not going to get you to where you are going next. Yes. You had another question.
No, I'm just repeating it like I'm sitting here in church. You're taking us to church and I'm just repeating what you said. Yeah. What got us here won't get us there.
Right.
And so for those of us who, and I identified as that as well.
Yes.
And forgive me, my allergies, girl, they are on fire. I mean, they are just going. So it sounds like I've been battling crying this whole episode. Well, I mean, maybe I have at some point, but it's all the things. Right. So I identified as strong and self-reliant.
Yes.
And it's not lost on me that many of the people that I attracted in the group were strong and self-reliant, which, okay. And so there comes a point where strong and self-reliant won't get us to where we want to go.
Right.
And so maybe there's people who are listening right now and they too identify that doing it on my own, only depending on myself, won't get me to where I want to go. What do we do now?
Well, you have to realize, number one, is just self-reflection. I've reached my peak. If I'm starting to ask questions around, well, why can't I continue to grow? Why can't I, get that opportunity? Why do these things keep falling through? Maybe it's because how you've always been showing up for the past, decade or so, which is how you've needed to show up. You're going to have to show up differently. And it does not start with, let me get a new partner. Let me get a new team member. It starts with, no, let me just be different internally. So this group, strong and self-reliant, getting that need met externally, right? You getting that need met externally. Internally looks like, for someone that's strong and self-reliant, how do I now define what strong and self-reliant means? Before it was, doing all the things I needed to do, making all the connections I needed to make on my own. But now what does that look like? It might look like
That's right.
I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed and at my wit's end with the business as it is right now. Strong and self-reliant today looks like for me saying no. No to that meeting. No to this new connection.
Can I say what it meant for me was asking for help. I could not ask for help. I mean, I could be, and it was just like the mantra was, you've always done it on your own. You will always push on your own. And strong to me used to mean doing it on your own. And after doing and uncovering the work, strong to me doesn't mean pulling back. It means elevating people on the team to say, you take it and run.
Right.
Because me at a half state could never compete with you at a full state, or even you at your worst state will be better than me on mine, because I'm not in that place. I didn't know how to put words to that. It was always, I'm gonna do it. Put everything on my back. I don't care. I'll drag you across with me. That was not serving me. That was keeping me stuck.
Well, and to the point that we were talking about earlier, because that was another if then, right? Well, if I do this, then maybe they'll perform, in the way that I need them to perform.
Right.
Which is why, just going back.
Oh my God, that was a loop back. Oh my God.
Going introspective work, asking the questions that need to be asked, understanding how I'm going to get my needs met. Then we're now ready. Strong and self-reliant women, getting that need met. Okay, it's now time for me to get this need met internally. This does not mean I'm going to neglect everyone else. It just means if I don't do the work I need to do for self, I won't even be able to show up for them. If I don't, to your point, ask for help, what am I teaching them?
That's right.
In the company? They're going to have to go and figure it out on their own. Well, maybe her need is just succeed and achieve. Well, you're now communicating to her, go be strong and self-reliant. If you don't have it figured out, don't come over here to me. Now that impacts the team. Now that, people feel misguided a little bit, and now do they want to stay? Do they want to go? No, but I need you. That's not what I meant. But it's what we communicated.
Absolutely.
Because we didn't get that need met for ourselves internally.
Oh, okay. So what we've done is we've used myself as an example for the work that we've done. We talked a little bit about who you are and what you've done, and then the questions that people can ask for themselves. And then we've moved on over to taking a sampling of 20 seven-figure entrepreneurs who are doing really incredible things and saying, these are the patterns. But you work with large organizations. And so talk to us I would say the vast majority of the listeners are their own entrepreneurs. But how does this exist in bigger organizations, so that if we ever have the desire to do that, or if we take our skill set and we enter in the workforce in a C-suite capacity, what are the patterns that you're seeing there? Are they different, or are they same as leader entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I would say it's diverse across many different teams. I think you've just done a really good job, as you shared, of attracting those who, who are a part of this group. But when you get to these large corporations and these businesses, it's still the same. These are still humans that are working, in the space. And when you have some of these, one of the things that I noticed about executives is that they'd rather have their team go through the coaching and get the print than their own self. And a lot of times they are the ones, to your point, they are the ones that may be strong or self-reliant. And sometimes, interestingly, there's another need that's assessed through the print assessment. And it's they want to find meaning in life. They want to find meaning in life. But because they have been you've learned how to move in corporate. You've learned how to navigate, how to behave, how to talk, how to act. You've learned all these mannerisms, those identities that we talked about early on. Someone early on in their career told them, this is what you have to do if you want to get ahead. Well, if I want to get ahead, I better do this thing. And then what keeps happening? They keep getting affirmed with the promotions, with the salaries and all the different things. But when you look at their needs underneath, if they would allow it, it's to just find meaning in life. They came into the corporate world thinking that they could change something at, a much larger, at a systemic scale. And they could, but because they chose to take on those identities and move and navigate in that way, now they have a team. Well, my team needs the help. It's not me, it's them that need the work. And then what we find on the team is that they're very diverse in the needs that need to get met. But because this person has learned to suppress the need of finding meaning in life, they're looking to the team to, just perform, just achieve, just, do these things. We don't have time to focus on what the needs are. And, the needs, it's only the needs of the company, not realizing that the company is the people and that who we're serving are also people. So those are some of the things that even in corporate, it's a lot of it is the same work. But I would say it's a bigger hurdle to go over because the leaders that are making the decisions oftentimes don't want to just kind of take a step back to really look at what is it that they need, because they've had to be so selfless, not realizing how much it's impacted them or their teams.
So for somebody who's watching or listening and it's resonating, what would you tell them? Like, because many of us, like myself, I didn't know that I needed to do this work. It wasn't even on my radar. And it was thrusted upon me. I was voluntold. I voluntold because part of the program, we weren't mandated, but we were kind of, sort of, right?
Right.
And so I was voluntold into doing this with you, and I didn't know I needed. I didn't know how stuck I was. So somebody who's listening and being like, I'm just not really like that. That's Jasmine, but not me. What do you say to the person who's not quite sure that this is the thing that they even need to do, the work they need to do?
I would say that all of us have work to do. Even myself. I have colleagues who are still clinical psychologists, counseling psychologists, and that work is there's a lot of burnout there, which is why many of them switch to consulting as consulting psychologists, or they do the work that I'm doing as an executive coach. Even therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists know that they need a therapist, psychologist, coach. You are being hammered on a daily basis.
That's right.
With different struggles, different challenges. People are coming to you with their own struggles and challenges. And you as a founder, an owner, a innovator have learned to sort of, cover those things, cover those potholes and just go with the blow. You've learned how to just not go with the blow, go with the flow.
Go with the blow too. Somebody comes in and clocks you and you're like, I'm gonna move with it because I gotta stay up.
You have to stay up. You have to stay up.
I actually thought it was real good. Don't correct it. Go with the blow. Dang, if that's not shoot.
But you've learned how to just take it as it comes. At some point, you are not going to be able to continue in that way.
That's right.
And I'll give you a perfect example. I had an amazing founder. And even as I'm talking to you about it, I'm feeling it just right here in my stomach, in my gut. And we were talking and, we would get on the call and they would say like, I've accomplished this and I've done these things. Now in executive coaching, the goal is for you to accomplish your goals and achieve. That's why we exist. But at some point I began to get concerned because they had so many balls in the air that I'm like, okay, 5 of these are going to drop. And either you're going to catch those and the other 10 are going to fall, or those 10 are going to drop and so this can't keep going on. And so I'm just for privilege or privacy, I'll keep, the conversation sacred, but it ended up, he finally got the breakthrough and he said, I went to the doctor about 8-9 months ago. Now, mind you, this is a 7-8 figure business owner who's done their entire life has been entrepreneurship. Okay. I went to the doctor and I went because my chest was hurting and I felt that I was having a heart attack. There could have been nothing to convince him otherwise that this was not a heart attack. So he goes, they run every single test possible. And I'm so pulled into the story. I said, well, did they do a brain scan? Did they look at, and so they ran every single test possible. The doctor comes back into me. I was there for maybe 1 or 2 days. The doctor comes back into me and says, so the good news is there's nothing wrong with you. We can't find anything. But the thing I want you to think about is we have strong reason to believe that you had an anxiety attack. We have strong reason to believe that you may have panicked at some point. Now, of course, a medical doctor is probably going to, prescribe and then walk out of the office. But had I been there, I could have given context to that makes sense. At some point, you're going to take all these blows. You're going to take all this energy. You're going to feel like you have to carry the world and you're going to feel like you have to carry this business, and you do. But at some point, you need to take a break, a step back, even if it's for a day, and just say, okay, what need do I need to get met? And how am I going to go about that? In service of myself first, then my team, then my customers, then my business. If you don't do the work, I guarantee you at some point, you can't keep running. We don't run off of fumes.
That's right.
You cannot do that.
I want to tap here for a second because one of the things that I experienced that was different in the way that you had coached is you had boldly and proudly declared you are an executive coach. And what I have seen, and so I'm just a little bit, sometimes I'm skeptical, right? I'm a marketer. I know how to market, right? So you could say you're one thing, but a marketer knows a marketer. And I'm like, but what's really here? And so one of the things I thought was really intriguing was your executive coaching was deeply rooted in a wild sense of marketing and brand.
Yes.
You went through the school of marketing brand. Can you share it, what that journey is, just so that people are hearing this and being like, this is not the woo-woo. I'm going to route you up and I don't actually understand what it is you do. It's like, no. I've been in the mess, y'all. I've been in the mess.
So my background, my expertise, I'm an industrial organizational psychologist. And that's essentially...
That's fancy. That's just fancy.
You're
so smart.
I like it. But unlike counseling or clinical psychologists that are working with people who have mental health issues, I see the organization as the company has issues, challenges. And so I come in and help the company with those issues or challenges. The team is what I see as a brain, the team working together, all the synapses and all the things firing off. And if there's a kink in the team, in the brain, then I'm coming in and identifying using assessments. So very much like the print, but using organizational assessments, business assessments, team assessments. Like if anyone's familiar with Pat Lencioni's, you can pick up the book, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. If you are looking to assess your team, but I assess the team to find out, okay, what are the kinks? What are the things that the team might be doing that is going to prevent us to getting to where it is that we're trying to go? So accomplishing that North Star. I learned very early on, probably around 2018, 19, that I really wanted to get my expertise out there, or just every time I would go and talk to someone, they never knew what an industrial organizational psychologist was. And so I was like, okay, we need to learn how to market then. And so I went to James Orsini. I saw him posting a lot of content at the time, and he's an accounting guy working in a marketing firm for Gary Vaynerchuk. I didn't even know who Gary Vaynerchuk was at the time, but I was intrigued by this guy who does not come from a marketing background, but is just really helping businesses to grow.
Now, at the time, James Orsini is the COO.
He was the president of the Sasha Group.
Okay.
So that's what made me interested, because the Sasha Group started to work with small businesses and entrepreneurs because, the company's named after his dad. He's very passionate about...
Okay, hold on. So there is VaynerX or VaynerMedia.
Right.
And then Sasha is underneath one of those companies.
Right. One of the baby
companies. Sasha is a baby company, and Sasha was named after Gary's dad.
Right.
So I want to make sure that we're understanding where this is. There is Dr. Natasha, who comes across James Orsini, who is sitting as the president of one of the baby companies, and she doesn't even know who's the big parent company.
I have no clue who Gary Vaynerchuk was.
Okay. Okay.
But one day he was having a conversation with Gary, and they were just talking about how James, his whole goal was to come in, and he's like, I'm not coming in here to be number one or take over. I came in and I'm okay with, being the number 2 and helping him. So he talked about his journey, to your point, from COO, then he became the president, because Gary's like, I still want to give back to the small businesses, the entrepreneurs. I want to help them market themselves. So then you have the Sasha Group that's born. And I reached out to James and just said, hey, I need to learn marketing. I need you to teach me everything you know about marketing and business. And he said, I'll give you a 15-minute conversation. So in that day, I learned how to have a 15-minute conversation. And about 30 days later, he said, hey, we have Maribel Lara, who's the senior vice president at the time. She's building out a consulting department. I know that you do consulting, you do would you mind coming in? I said, absolutely, let's do it. And so for 4.5 years, I worked at Sasha in the consulting department, helping to build that up, but working with small businesses, entrepreneurs, founders, using all of the same skills. I start every single engagement with a diagnosis. I don't want to come in here and do any guessing game, right? I want to come in and I want to truly understand what is it that I'm working with, because all of us have a collective sort of conscience. Everything is a conscience. The business is a conscience. What do psychologists study? What do they look at? What do they diagnose? They diagnose the conscience. And so taking that skill set of IO psychology into consulting, but inside of Gary Vaynerchuk's marketing agency was really cool, because I was then able to pick up, not only am I speaking to, the small businesses and how do you grow? Why aren't you growing? What is the team going on? We have to activate the team. We have to fix the team. We have to fix you that's leading the team. But also now that we have our internal together, we have our team together, we have you as the leader together, now we can show up to our customers through marketing.
That's right.
In a way that comes off not as just authentic, but consistent.
Okay.
So tying all that together.
That is why, for some reason, the executive coaching that I got from you throughout this program made a difference. Because I said, you just get the whole thing.
Right.
You don't get a piece of it. You get the whole thing.
The entire
as how
life
we
cycle.
needed to show up as a holding company.
Yes.
We needed to go below.
Right.
We needed to work our way up, and we needed to find all of that together. So I had to do the work as a leader on my own. And then what I had to do is I had to find a way to get the support. Luckily, our paths intersected. Luckily, even more luckily, I was able to introduce you to the amazing women in my mastermind. And luckily, I'm just going to pitch you here on my show. The next cohort will be able to experience Dr. Natasha as well. But for those of you who are at home and listening and watching and would like to know more, Dr. Natasha, look at this queen. Look at this queen. So I have been trying to get her on my show since October of last year. Okay.
Yes.
I waited. This is a long time coming. I waited to get her on my show. And I said, Dr. Natasha, you're going to come on my show, but there's people who are going to want to go deep, and maybe they're not quite sure they want to go deep with you. And so what did you create on your website? DrNatashaj.com. Tell them what they get there for free when they go.
Yes. So I love, that we've talked to the audience, because many of you, to your point, that's a fair question. Maybe they're not ready to do executive coaching or go, deep in that way. So I created a 5-day challenge. It's a leadership challenge. It's 100% free. You can go and you can access it on my website.
I went to it and I did it. Thank you. I'm like a user and approver.
But just go subscribe, sign up. You're going to get drops each and every day. And it's going to be a different leadership challenge. And if you're willing to do the work of those 5 days, you're going to do the unseen work to have that visible impact that you are looking for. You're going to talk about emotional resilience, mastering that. You're going to talk about, okay, how do I do some really good and strategic decision making? You're going to talk about, just all the things that we've talked about today.
Right.
I've packaged it up in this 5-day challenge that you can get over email.
And the best thing about the challenge, if I may,
please.
is that there's not like 55-minute videos.
No.
These are very short videos, but here's
Very
the thing.
short videos.
She asks you questions that require you to do work. They just do. So if you sign up, I want you to commit some time every day to do this
work.
challenge,
Yes.
because I did the work and it was such a great refresher. And I can't believe that you're giving all of that just generously away, because this is the work that matters.
The work that matters is right, because many of us are suffering in silence. And that's my own journey. We are suffering in silence. And if we, high achieving, high performing people, go-getter women, that's good. There's nothing wrong with that. But we also want to be around to experience the fruit of what it is that we're constantly putting in every day into our businesses, into our families, into our friendships, and so this is just an opportunity, a very low barrier to entry opportunity for you to at least just start the conversation with yourself. And then make a decision. If you do want to go, it doesn't necessarily have to be me. It could be anyone, but find someone that is going to push you to do the work for self first, so that you can show up with that visible impact for everyone else.
That is why I just love this woman. That's why I have waited months and months and months and months to get her on the show.
Look, I had to come in person. There was no way we could do this.
You did, but I didn't even give you the option. I'm like, I need to get you to the West Coast, the best coast, to do this. And so I just want to give a brief recap of some of the notes that I had written, because what I have been keenly aware to throughout this process is there is a difference between self-awareness and being self-intelligent. And that was the biggest thing that I was missing in my cachet of tools in 2024. And I had to ask myself, once I realized that there was a difference, what am I willing to do differently? I can't be the same person and expect a different result. So I had to ask myself, what am I willing to do differently? But then I had to first identify, what is it that I actually need? And then once I actually realized what I needed, well, then it opened me up to, what are the possibilities? What are the possibilities? And then Dr. Natasha brought in the ever amazing Seth Godin. I interviewed him on my podcast. I will also link to it on my show notes, because his podcast was really moving. But this question is, if you can do anything and not get paid and not get attention, and it could be a failure, what would it be? that just hit so different. And at the end, what I am very proud to say is Dr. Natasha has helped me learn how to turn the blows into flows. I don't need to go with the blows anymore. I can take the blow and then I can say, how am I going to turn this into flow?
Right, exactly.
And so I just want to say thank you for showing up. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being here. How can people connect you? Where do you like to connect most online?
Yes, right now, LinkedIn. If you search Dr. Natasha on LinkedIn, and I'm sure we'll have that linked in the show notes, please connect with me there. If you have any questions, please let me know. I probably won't get back to you within 2 minutes, but I will get back to you, I assure you. And then also Instagram, Dr. Natasha PhD on Instagram. I'm going to be putting some different content out there. Nothing's there now, but it will be coming.
At the time of this debut, there will be something there. If I have anything to do with it, I was like, you better get some posts up there. We better get an exit link to this free 5-day challenge. Don't worry, I will buff her up before she's live.
Okay, let me say that again.
No, this show you about to be real. We're gonna be real. You are not gonna be my friend and expect it to be pretty. No, we gotta do the work. She can't come here and expect me to do the work and me not call her out. Bye. That's my show, honey. This is my show. No. We're doing the work. I'm so happy this is recorded. I'm so happy.
Yes.
Y'all, Dr. Natasha J.com. If this show has meant anything to you, or if there is another person on your journey who would like to join this conversation, please feel free to share this show with them. Please. It is a place of love and gratitude that I get to say thank you for watching and listening to The Jasmine Star Show.